This really feels like one of those moments where Ferrari quietly admits that something just wasn't working, and instead of dragging it out, they finally decided to pull the plug. When you look at everything that's happened around Lewis Hamilton since joining Ferrari, this change doesn't come out of nowhere at all. The removal of Riccardo Adami from the race engineer role is a massive reset, and honestly, it was becoming impossible to ignore. Ferrari brought Hamilton in to lead a new era, not to spend race weekends dealing with awkward radio silences and miscommunication when it mattered most. We all remember how uncomfortable things felt toward the end of the season, especially in that final race. Hamilton comes over the radio on his in-lap, thanking his race engineer for the work across the year, clearly trying to close the chapter on a positive note, and there's nothing. No response, no acknowledgement. For a driver like Lewis, who thrives on connection and clarity, that silence said more than any argument ever could. When he followed it up and asked if his message had even been received, the delayed reply only made it worse. That's not just a bad moment, that's a broken working relationship, and in Formula One, that's simply not sustainable. The race engineer isn't just another voice on the radio. That person is your link to the entire team, the filter between chaos and clarity when you're driving at the limit. If that trust isn't there, performance suffers, confidence drops, and small issues quickly turn into big problems. Ferrari saw that playing out in real time and moving Adami away from the race weekend environment was the only realistic solution. This wasn't about punishment. It was about protecting their biggest investment and giving Hamilton the environment he needs to succeed. Before we go any further, if you want to stay up to date with everything happening around Hamilton, Ferrari, and the next regulation era, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. It really helps us push toward that 2,000 subscriber goal, and it makes sure you never miss breaking F1 news like this. And let me ask you this right now. Do you think Ferrari waited too long to make this change? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Because once Adami was moved aside, the next question became the most important one of all. Who steps in to become Lewis Hamilton's new voice on the pit wall? And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because the name emerging isn't random at all, and the background behind it might explain why Ferrari believes this could finally be the right fit. So now that you know why Ferrari had to make a change, the next question almost answers itself. Who do you put next to Lewis Hamilton when margins are this tight and pressure is this high? This is where Luca Dela comes into the picture, and the more you look at his background, the more this starts to feel like a very deliberate decision rather than a gamble. Luca isn't a flashy name that casual fans instantly recognize, but inside the paddock, his profile makes a lot of sense for where Ferrari is heading. Luca Dela is a performance engineer by trade, and not just any performance engineer. He studied motorsport engineering, graduating in 2016, and worked his way into one of the most demanding environments in the sport at Mercedes. From 2019 through 2024, he was part of Lewis Hamilton's inner technical circle, specializing in power units and engine performance. That meant race weekends spent analyzing massive amounts of data, fine-tuning engine behavior, and making sure Hamilton always had the most efficient and reliable package possible under him. That's not a distant factory role. That's hands-on, race-critical work. A lot of fans hear performance engineer and think it's just someone staring at screens, but the role is much deeper than that. Performance engineers are responsible for translating raw telemetry into actionable decisions. They help guide car setup, interpret driver feedback, work with simulations, and support the race engineer both trackside and back at the factory. In many ways, they sit directly below the race engineer in the chain, feeding them the information that ultimately reaches the driver. That's why moving from performance engineer to race engineer is such a natural progression in Formula One. What makes Luca particularly interesting for Ferrari is his engine-focused background. Going into a brand new regulation cycle, with Ferrari delivering their own power unit and reportedly still chasing performance, that expertise suddenly becomes invaluable. Early races in a new era are all about tweaking, adapting, and reacting in real time. Having someone on the pit wall who truly understands how the engine behaves under race conditions could make a huge difference, especially when reliability and performance are still being discovered. Let me ask you this. Did you already know what a performance engineer really does before hearing this, or did it surprise you how close they are to the driver? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying these deeper breakdowns, make sure to like the video and subscribe. You're directly helping us push toward 2,000 subscribers, and it allows us to keep bringing you this kind of F1 analysis. Because while Luca Dela's technical background is impressive, the real reason Ferrari might believe this can work goes beyond data and engines. And it has everything to do with trust, chemistry, and the relationship between a driver and the person in his ear every single lap. This is where the story really shifts from technical logic to human reality, because in Formula One, speed alone is never enough. The relationship between a driver and a race engineer can define an entire career arc, and for Lewis Hamilton, that relationship has always been absolutely central to how he performs. When you think back to his most dominant years, there was always that sense of calm and confidence coming through the radio, and that didn't happen by accident. At Mercedes, Hamilton had a brotherhood with his race engineer. There was trust built over years, an understanding that went beyond lap times and tire deltas. When Lewis said something felt wrong in the car, it was taken seriously. When pressure peaked late in a race, the communication stayed clear, supportive, and precise. That kind of connection allows a driver to focus purely on driving, knowing the person on the other end has their back completely. That's exactly what was missing at Ferrari. From the very beginning, the relationship with Riccardo Adarmi never felt natural. It looked forced, like something that was put together out of necessity rather than chemistry. Over time, that lack of connection started to show more and more. Radio exchanges felt tense, sometimes awkward, and occasionally flat-out cold. And when communication breaks down at that level, it doesn't just hurt morale, it actively blocks performance. One of the biggest issues with a poor driver-engineer relationship is the breakdown of the feedback loop. Performance engineers like Luca Dela are constantly feeding information into the system, but the race engineer is the gatekeeper. If there's disagreement, mistrust, or ego involved, that information can get diluted or even stopped before it ever reaches the driver. In a situation like that, the driver isn't getting the full picture, and small issues can snowball into major problems over a race weekend. For Lewis Hamilton, that kind of environment is toxic. He needs openness, clarity, and someone who understands not just the car, but how he thinks under pressure. That's why the existing relationship with Luca Dela matters so much. They've worked together before. They already speak the same technical language. There's no need to build trust from zero, and that alone can save months of frustration. I'm curious what you think here. Do you believe trust between a driver and race engineer matters more than raw engineering skill, or should data always come first? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you agree that chemistry can make or break a season, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Every subscription helps us move closer to 2,000 subscribers and keeps this channel growing. Because as important as this relationship is on its own, it also fits into something much bigger Ferrari is building behind the scenes. And once you see that wider picture, this decision starts to make even more sense. When you step back and look at this move in context, it becomes clear that Ferrari isn't just fixing a communication issue, they're reshaping the entire environment around Lewis Hamilton. Luca Dela potentially stepping up isn't happening in isolation. It fits into a broader strategy that Ferrari has been quietly developing, one that borrows heavily from structures that have already proven successful elsewhere in Formula One. One of the most telling details is who else has arrived at Ferrari from Mercedes. Jerome D'Ambrosio, now the deputy team principal, made the same move, and that matters more than people realize. Ferrari knows that when a driver like Hamilton changes teams late in his career, familiarity can be just as valuable as raw performance. Surrounding him with people who understand how he works, how he communicates, and how decisions are made under pressure reduces friction and speeds up progress. This becomes even more important when you factor in the upcoming regulation cycle. Ferrari is entering a period where their power unit will be under intense scrutiny, and by all accounts, they still have ground to make up. Early in a new engine era, there is no such thing as a perfect solution. There are constant tweaks, software changes, and compromises being made in real time during race weekends. That's why having someone on the pit wall with deep engine knowledge is such a big deal. Luca Dela's background in power units could prove crucial in those opening races. The first time an engine truly reveals its strengths and weaknesses is under full race conditions. When problems arise, or when opportunities for performance gains appear, decisions need to be made quickly and communicated clearly to the driver. That's not something you want filtered through layers of misunderstanding or second-guessing. Ferrari seems to be betting that Dela can shorten that chain and deliver cleaner, faster information straight to Hamilton. Let me know what you think about Ferrari's wider approach here. Do you feel like they're finally building the right structure around Hamilton? Or does this still feel like a work in progress? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. We're pushing hard toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support genuinely makes a difference. All of this sets the stage for the final and most important question of all. What does this mean for Lewis Hamilton's future at Ferrari? And could this single change be the one that finally unlocks his full potential in red? When you pull all of this together, it really does feel like Ferrari is finally giving Lewis Hamilton what he's been missing since arriving in red. This potential promotion for Luca Dela isn't just a technical reshuffle, it's a signal. It's Ferrari acknowledging that if they want Hamilton at his absolute best, they need to build trust first and performance second, not the other way around. Hamilton has already made it clear how he feels about working with Luca. When Dela joined Ferrari as a performance engineer earlier in the season, Lewis openly spoke about how difficult it usually is to adapt to a new engineer mid-season, but also pointed out that with Luca, it was different. He emphasized that they already had a good dynamic and that progress on the car followed soon after. That's not a casual compliment. That's a 7-time world champion telling you that a specific person made his job easier and his performance better. We also saw the results. From Spa onward, Hamilton looked more settled, more confident, and more in tune with the car. That doesn't happen by coincidence. When a driver feels understood, when feedback is acted on quickly and correctly, performance naturally improves. If Luca Dela becomes his race engineer, that relationship moves from being supportive in the background to being front and center during every lap of every race. For Ferrari, this could be a defining moment. They're entering a critical phase with new regulations, a new power unit, and massive expectations. Having Hamilton paired with a familiar, trusted voice could be the difference between frustration and momentum. It won't magically solve every problem, but it gives them a foundation that simply wasn't there before. And for Lewis, having someone in his corner who knows how he thinks, how he drives, and how he reacts under pressure could extend his competitive window in a meaningful way. So let me ask you this to wrap it all up. Does this move make you more confident in Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari project, or are you still waiting to be convinced? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this full breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You're directly helping us move closer to our goal of 2,000 subscribers, and that support really does matter.